Welcome back to the Citystead, everyone. It feels good to be out in the greenhouse again now that fall is here. We got all fall and winter to start hanging out in here. So I was doing a little workout in the greenhouse, getting some things ready for you. You may have seen them, may not have yet. I'm not sure when this video is coming out. But while I was out here doing a little bit of work, I thought I would take a minute and tell you a little bit about this new green that I grew. It's called Chinese Multi-Colored Spinach. And I gotta tell you, this stuff is awesome and pretty interesting. So as you can see, this is something I picked up from Baker Creek this year, earlier in the spring. I really like to try to plant new things I've never heard of, and this was just something that caught my eye. One of the things that really caught my eye was the variegated leaves on it, and they are gorgeous. Chinese multicolored spinach is actually an edible amaranth. It's not really spinach at all, but just a variety of amaranth that's edible, and there's actually a lot of different varieties that are edible. Something like the white leaf, the southern red, the green pointed leaf, or this one, the Chinese multicolored, or amaranth red, as it's called also. These are just some of the varieties that are actually edible. This red one that I got from Baker's Creek Seeds actually is a variegated green leaf of crimson highlights, which is just a very pretty plant to look at. As you can see, this thing is pretty much a showstopper. Really just awesome looking plant as you're growing it. The colors are so vibrant and just perfect. What I ended up doing was planting some of this out in my front edible garden as kind of a back row right against my house, because they get about between 3 and like 6 foot tall. They can be anywhere in that range, kind of. Mine actually got about 4 foot, and that was as far as they grew. So I'm planning on next year lining them all across the front of my house as kind of a edible landscape, but also just because of the way that they color, I think they'll be very pretty to look at. And I grew some out in my normal garden in my greens area, and that's where we picked ours from to eat from over the summer. So a really good thing about this Chinese multicolored spinach, or red amaranth, is that it is heat tolerant. So when you're in the middle of summer and you're really kinkering some greens, we all know how hard it is to keep them because they like to bolt. Greens, as soon as they start getting hot, they just bolt up, and you don't really have a lot of ease of growing any kind of green in the mid-summer, especially if you're down south where you're even hotter than we are up here in Michigan. So this was a very nice plant because it didn't bolt on us, and it still produced a lot of good greens. We had actually paired this with our Malabar spinach to get us through summer when it comes to greens. So as you can see, this is our remaining amaranth plant that we kept in the ground. It's seeding out, and I plan on trying to harvest seeds out of these. I've never done it before, so that's going to be something new for me. But this plant is known in traditional Chinese medicine to treat heat stroke and detoxify the body, and they also use it to heal fractures. So it's got some medicinal purposes on top of being an edible green that you can eat. When I was looking this up, researching whether or not I wanted to try to grow it, one of the things I thought was really interesting was that this was grown in North America and South America as an ancient, just wild plant that used to be everywhere. It was believed to be eaten by like the Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Incas, and they actually called it the food of the gods. So they held this plant in very high regard. So this was actually nearly wiped out of all of Americas when the Spanish conquistadors came over and banned the cultivation of these amaranths, edible amaranths, and that was in the early 1500s. It actually wasn't until like the 1970s that this plant became popular again and was starting to be cultivated again by us Americans, at least. Maybe other places got there sooner. I just know about us, we got there in the 70s to where we're like, you know what, this is a good plant, we should start growing it again. So it's pretty interesting to think that, you know, it was almost wiped out so long ago, and then it took so long before people discovered it, rediscovered it, you know, again, to add back into their crop rotations of things that they grow. So if you guys are like us and you really enjoy your greens and you enjoy them all year round and have a hard time when it comes to summer, we get a lot of bolting going on with our greens. As you can see, it's super hot. So it's not good for greens, but this actually did really well, and we didn't have any problems with it all throughout the summer. Now, as soon as it did start touching a little bit on the cooler temperatures here, we're, you know, early into October right now, we've hit the cold temps a little bit at night. We're down to like the 40s. It did die out on us. It's definitely a hot plant, and it likes to be germinated above 65 degrees, somewhere around that range. So it's definitely something you would start in the late spring, early summer, but you can enjoy it all summer long, that's the benefit of it, because most greens are dying at that time. You would have something like that. Like I said, we paired it with the Malabar spinach, which also is very heat tolerant, and it's a very good combination of greens to have in the summer. I had to bring you up front to show you the baby plants that I just planted. I planted from seed a little over a month ago when I did my edible front yard video. And one thing I thought was really neat about this is, even as tiny little sprouts, they have a variegated leaf on them. So the beauty of this plant actually starts like almost immediately, which is just nice that it, you know, you don't have to wait until it develops that. It actually starts sprouting and has the variegation to it already. So let me give you a quick look at these tiny little sprouts so you can see them. Now when we cooked it with our spinach and zucchini lasagna that we made, and it's a little bit sweeter than your normal like spinach is, being that the red makes it a little bit sweeter, and then it also gives off like this pink juice when you're cooking it, and it was very, very tasty, and definitely a standout when it comes to flavor wise. I don't think you can get many better spinaches that taste the way it tasted. So definitely cooking wise, it's awesome. And I know if you wanted, you could eat the younger leaves plain, you know, without cooking them. It's like any other spinach, you know, you want to cook your more mature leaves. It does contain nitrates and stuff like that, so you want to be responsible about how you're consuming it. You don't need any kidney problems. So if you are growing it, if you do plan on growing it, I would check out Baker Creek. I'll actually leave a link down below directly to the page that I bought this from. Definitely a green that is worth adding to your collection of greens. And like I said, if you are somebody who tries to grow greens all year round, which is definitely possible in almost every climate, this is the perfect thing to have in your garden for your summer months where it's so hot. Just being very heat tolerant. It's awesome. It was drought tolerant, it seemed. I barely ever water my garden, and I had no problems at all growing this stuff. So I would definitely say that of the new varieties that we tried this year, the multicolored spinach, or amaranth red, or red amaranth, however you want to call it, it's definitely a standout in my book, and it's something that's going to become a staple in our garden and just all throughout our entire yard. Grow it in my garden, grow it in my front garden as an edible green landscape plant for the beauty of the variegated leaves that it has. I'm going to grow it because it's good spinach, and I really enjoy spinach and greens. So that is definitely why it's going to make it into our garden again year after year after year. I hope you guys found this interesting. If you guys like this kind of video, let me know. Put a comment down below. Maybe I'll make some more of these of some of the other things I grew this year that are kind of different and not most commonplace. So that's all I got for you. Like I said, check out the link below. Buy yourself some. You will not regret this. And as always, we will see you guys in the next one.